hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. It's Monday night at 9 p.m. and time for Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Dr. Ricky Siegel is a certified sex therapist, educator, and supervisor, and his brother Larry Siegel is a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator. The Siegel Brothers are here to answer all your questions about sex and sexuality, but we're unsure who to ask, including questions you didn't even know you had. They will also welcome guests from around the globe to talk about a wide variety of topics and issues within the fascinating world of sexuality. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Sex Talk.
Welcome to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. It's not Monday at 9 p.m. if anyone's really high and just got really scared. Yep. It's Friday at 7, and our brand new time. We're very excited. We hope you've all followed us over, and if you're watching us live streaming on Facebook, good evening.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Please hit the like and share buttons. And if you're listening on the radio, we're on our usual 95.3 FM and 1470 AM in South Florida. Very excited that our big ups and props to our producer, Freddie, and AMP2 TV Productions. Now we're growing. We've added a few more stations. We're on 103.9 FM and 96.9, as well as 740 AM. Like to see it. Keep it growing. Keep spreading the word. And now we'll be with you for the hour this evening.
That's right.
So Friday night is now, well, any time is a good time for Sex Talk. And exactly. Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers is our weekly chance to see what comes up. My name is Richard Siegel. I'm a certified sex therapist.
And I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
Who happens to be a pretty awesome big brother.
Well, thanks. It's still my favorite role.
Please, if you're so inclined, make note of this number, 888-565-1470. You can call in, join the conversation, ask a question, or hit that send email button on the Facebook page for Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers and submit your questions there. We'd love to have you join the conversation.
Yeah, if you just want to get something off your chest, that's fine too. So join us any way you can.
If you have something really, all kidding aside, something serious that's pressing and concerning you and you need a more private opportunity to get something heavy off your chest, you could see if you're watching on the screen a cell number. You can get a hold of me or an email address if you would like to schedule a private consultation.
And again, that is for people that want any kind of counseling or therapy, as well as any professionals who are looking for training and education, particularly around certification as sexual health professionals. We definitely do that as well, and through Modern Sex Therapy Institutes, can help you with certification.
I have to do my shameless plug, get it on screen.
Shameless plugs. Yes, hopefully, and if you know or anybody's interested in advertising or even sponsorship, we will be all about shameless plugs.
Indeed. Let us know. So tonight on Sex Talk, since it's a new evening, a different hour, maybe somewhat different audience, and our first time going the full hour, we thought we'd kind of step back, get back to our roots as sex therapists and sexuality educators, and just talk about some basic kind of things that people struggle with around relationships.
Yeah.
And I thought the question of the evening might be a good one to ask. What kills the sexy?
That's a big relationship. And you want to, big relationship. It's really a huge question. And something that sort of does circle around just about every relationship. And I think there are things that, as we talk about this, to sort of set the stage, there's always that expectation of what kills a relationship is often something negative, some kind of problem, something that's missing. But, we also need to look at a lot of what kills the sexy in the relationship are all those things that people really want in their relationships.
Say more.
All right. Well, to start out with, and this is something that, kind of referring back to a dear friend of ours, Esther Perel. and her book Mating in Captivity.
Should be mandatory reading for like everyone.
Absolutely, and I think it's
Every
already been
therapist,
translated in almost 30
couples.
languages.
Yes, it's a very, very important book.
Absolutely, and a basic idea just to encapsulate that. What I mean by good things can kill the sexy as well. Right. That when we look
Gotcha.
at when people are working in a relationship, the things that people often work toward, right? They want trust. They want to know their partner. They want safety.
They
and
want
in
a
many
soulmate.
cases, the soulmate, somebody who thinks like I do,
It's a
who
dangerous-
knows what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, these are eroticism killers. These are
Yeah.
sexy killers.
We grow up with them as ideals of romance, the Hallmark card crap about what a relationship should be, and that one person should be your everything.
Right.
And that right there could be the pressure that kills relationships,
Right.
right? Or kills the sexy in relationships.
Well, sure, but even before going on to that pressure, just staying on where it doesn't feel like pressure, where it feels easy, it feels relaxed. It's that kind of comfort in the relationship. And as much as we really want comfort in a relationship, we want safety in a relationship, but we've got to understand that there's a way that will kill the sexy. That eroticism needs a little edge.
It needs tension.
Yeah, it needs a little tension.
And
Needs
it
that
needs a little
edge.
mystery, which is
That's
really
right.
hard to maintain in a long-term relationship, especially when, you got to the point where you're together so long, you're in the bathroom together getting ready for work, and one's shaving at the sink and one's on the toilet, and there's really no mystery left.
Right.
Or, as, we'll get into over the course of the hour, how relationship dynamics change and follow certain prescribed paths that people don't even realize. They're just following scripts that they didn't even know. People were given scripts that were never actually written down,
Right.
but just become a kind of a truth that hurts them.
Well, sure, and because these rules are never written down, these rules are never agreed upon, and these rules, we don't even know we have these rules. Right? How many times do people, again, the relationship ends up being the casualty when the first time people find out there was a rule to be followed here, it's when they found out they broke the rule.
That's the most common way. People discover what the rules are in a relationship when they break them.
Right.
Instead of, wouldn't it be nice? I used to ask this question a lot. Who in their right mind would go into business with someone who said, "Here, just sign this contract"? You say, "But it's a blank." "Yeah, don't worry. We'll fill it in as we go along." Would you sign that contract?
Of course not.
No idiot would sign
Right.
that contract.
Or if I may, you give somebody a contract, it's a blank contract, and you say, well, this is a blank contract, and the response is, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know what
Right.
I want.
Just
we
sign
understand
it.
each
Just
other.
sign it. But a marriage contract, is kind of one of those pre-printed forms where whether it's a member of the clergy or the justice of the peace or whatever public official is reading in front of all the assembled, friends and family, nobody's negotiating then.
Right.
Nobody's standing at the altar going, "Oh, wait, what was that?" With their lawyer. What was that last part? No, we're going to scratch that out in initial, right? The negotiation should probably happen long before the wedding.
Oh, sure.
And what are the terms? Just like a business deal. What are the terms of the relationship? What are our agreements? What are our values? Are there values we disagree on? Like you said, people have these conversations when it's too late,
Yeah.
when the
And-
damage is done.
Exactly. So, even going back to the question, what kills the sexy in a relationship? Sometimes it's the relationship, right? Because when people enter relationships, and again, the point you're making is really a key point here, that we don't go in with our eyes open. We don't go into relationships. Very, very few people, unless they're kind of in a sort of kink communities, they may be doing this. But even a lot of same-sex relationships, they may be doing this a little bit more as well. But most relationships, especially heterosexual relationships, people go into the relationships with assumptions and expectations. There are virtually no agreements and understandings between the people involved.
Yeah.
So then we get into these positions where, oh, there was a rule. Oh, I'm failing tests I didn't even know I was taking.
Right.
I'm breaking rules I
Exactly.
didn't even know
Right.
were in place.
Yeah.
I am betraying trusts I didn't even know were there.
Right. Especially if there are, some kind of personality things going on where people are almost trying to, knowingly or otherwise, set up their partners to fail these rules or break these rules they didn't even know existed.
Say something more about that. I mean, what is that underlying dynamic? How does that play itself out?
People are, just broadly, generally, we can take it as a given that the society is uncomfortable with sex, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, probably globally, what else is more universal to just about every human being on the planet, yet the one thing that we're most uncomfortable talking about.
Sure.
So when couples, here, let me say it this way. I think we talked about this a couple months ago. When Dan Savage was on Bill Maher,
Mm-hmm.
and he was making that comparison between a heterosexual hookup and a same-sex hookup in a bar,
Mm-hmm.
right? For a heterosexual hookup that, hey, you want to get out of here and go fool around? They don't have to, that's it. The conversation could end right there. Nothing more needs to be said for the rest of the night because
Mm-hmm.
there's an expectation of who's going to be doing what's
Right,
going to be
right.
happening, right? For a same-sex couple, you want to get out of here and go fool around is the beginning of a conversation.
Right, because it's
And there's
negotiation.
a lot that heterosexual people and vanilla people can learn from sexual minorities, especially kinky people.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much judgment and criticism. Ooh, you do what? You're a weirdo, you're a deviant. But who's better at communicating, at setting limits, at having a clear, absolutely clear picture of what's going to be happening, what's not, what the boundaries, limits are, what the communication means.
Being present
Right.
is a part of that,
Right.
too.
And we talked about this too. I'm still really upset that Dr. Ruth said that thing that she did
Oh, yeah,
in
yeah.
Time magazine about, I'm sorry, once two consenting people are naked in bed, there's no change in your mind.
Right, there's
Hell,
no going
there
back.
isn't.
Right.
Consent is an ongoing part of any sexual encounter
Mm-hmm.
and can always be the directions, the
That's
limits, the terms can always be changed along the way, right? Too late, you can't change it.
Yeah, no, that is really, if it was anybody else,
I know.
I would, if I just heard that without knowing who said
Yeah,
it,
I
I
know.
would just see that as idiotic.
We just love Dr. Ruth so much, but
Yeah, but
it
yeah,
was a
this
rough-
was definitely not a good
We'll
one.
have
so.
to give her a pass on her age and just being set in her ways, and
Yeah.
She even said,
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue with anybody. I'll say that's
Right.
your belief, and I'll disagree, but
Right, but yeah, no,
It's not good to
I
hear.
think that really is a problematic statement. And just to kind of put out again, remind people if you have any input, you want to join this conversation about what kind of sets up relationships, what helps kill the sexy in a relationship, give us a call, 888-565-1470. The phone lines are open tonight, so give us a buzz. So again, getting back to this idea of how we form our relationships.
right.
Right? That then becomes, it's almost like we're starting it with two strikes against us. Because if we're not able to negotiate the terms in the relationship, right, including, okay, if we say we are not going to cheat on each other, if we say that we're going to be faithful, now again, nobody ever even says that. It's just one of those assumptions.
Right.
But even if they say, all right, we're going to be faithful to each other, that has to be followed with, what does that mean?
Right.
Right? Let's spell this out.
Exactly.
Right? Because how many people get into, let's say, at a party, and I'm with my significant other, and I'm just talking to another woman, and we're being nice, it's going along very well. It feels good. I touch her arm, and she, touches me as we're talking.
Maybe
and
a
as
kiss
we
on
say-
the cheek
yeah,
when you say
maybe a kiss
goodbye.
goodbye, a hug, and a kiss on the cheek, and I go home, and my partner is furious, and now starts accusing me of cheating.
Right. There's a lot of people who think that, and I'm sure we will get into this hour, about a lot of people who think that if their partner looks at sexually explicit images that's an infidelity.
Oh, we'll definitely
If
get
they
to that.
fantasize about anything,
Sure.
that any sexual energy that does not come directed to me is a betrayal, and you're a cheater.
Right, and
That's tough.
we'll come back to that point. I
That's
think right
tough.
now we have Mary on the phone.
Hi, Mary.
Mary, are you there?
Yeah. I'm
Hey,
here.
how are you?
Thank
Thanks for
you.
calling.
Hi. Thank you very much for taking my call. I have a question.
Sure.
Sure.
I've been married. I've been married a long time. Over 40 years. For the
Congratulations.
last 15, I've spent 15 years roommating with my husband
Yeah.
because of something that I said and you were talking about how sometimes we break rules, and yes, I certainly did. So after that, after what I said, my question to come to the point is, how do you renew a sexual relationship after something has been broken like that for a long time?
Yes.
Yeah.
And can
Sorry
I get
that you
off
went
the
through
phone
that.
so I can listen to you on the radio?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Say that again.
Can I put the volume up and get off the phone so I can listen to your response
Oh,
on the
sure.
radio?
Sure.
Yes,
Thanks so much for
thanks
calling.
for calling in, Mary. Yes, and yeah, sadly, what you describe is very, very common, and something happens, and it kind of flips the switch, and there's a lot of avoidance or anger or resentment, and yeah, as Mary just described, sometimes even something like a comment can be enough to derail. And the first thing that comes to my mind is if there is commitment to the relationship, then we've got something to work with.
Right.
If both of you are still in it, but I would suggest getting with a sex therapist to help navigate how to reconnect, how to get back to the feelings, the affection, the kindness. You know, even when I have the angriest, most contentious couples in my office, sometimes it's almost like a hypnotic break. If I say, let me interrupt your fighting for a second, and tell me what the relationship was like when you first got together. And 99 out of 100 times people go, oh, well, you know, back then it was hot, it was sexy, we couldn't keep our hands off each other, we had sex all the time. And that gives you, you know, we can't turn back time, but that gives you such a great starting place to say, how can we connect back to those feelings before whatever created these anger or resentment or these feelings that, you know, how did we get here from there?
Right.
And can we try and bring it back around? I think, to what we were saying earlier, I think there's also, and we can transition this into like expectations and more of these kind of unwritten rules. Maybe it's stuff we grew up with, or we could blame our parents or our grandparents' generation, whatever. But I think there's an overall sense that relationships are supposed to follow a general trajectory that starts with a really intense honeymoon phase and then settles into a more familiar comfort, and then things get a little bit routine, right? Now, left on its own momentum or lack of momentum, routine tends to become obligatory,
Right.
right? Like it's Saturday night, babe, you know what that means. After a while, obligatory sex is never, you know, enthusiastic, or it stops being enthusiastic.
Stops being enthusiastic. Right?
And invariably, obligatory sex will become perfunctory sex, right? One wants it more than the other, and the other's like, okay, fine, just get it over with, right? And it's almost a guarantee at that point. Perfunctory sex will breed resentment.
Sure.
And
sure.
once there's anger and resentment, now you don't want to have sex with that person anymore.
Right.
Now the sexy is begun
Exactly.
to be killed.
Right.
And then, of course, there's always the big issue of changes in the marital dynamic. When lovers start becoming more like each other's parent, we talk about this all the time.
Exactly.
Right? We're wired. We're not supposed to be turned on by mommy or daddy. That's a natural incest kind of prohibition. So if our lover is now acting more like an angry, critical parent, we can't be surprised when the libido is gone.
Sure. And to, again, come back to Mary's question, when, in that, as you used the term roommating, there was that sense of, again, and as she had said, broke a rule. Mm-hmm. And again, guessing she didn't know she was breaking a rule. But there's something, right? They've remained together for 15 years.
Right.
In a platonic, non-sexual relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, what I like to look at with that, and what I would sort of offer them as a couple, and this is, I think, a good example of where, my oftentimes framing the relationship as a story, and looking at the narrative of the relationship.
Yes.
Because they've been telling this story for, I think, 40 years. And over the last 40 years, what they've been writing for the last 15 years has been this one particular story, this platonic, this probably underlying resentment, at least on his part, because of some kind of infraction, however that was.
Perceived or otherwise, right?
And at some point, right, it may have been 15 years, we can do this at any point in the relationship, but I think there's a good opportunity to take a pause, stop, that step back, look at the fact that obviously there's enough that's keeping them together in this relationship. They're still together, even though it's platonic and not erotic, it's still a relationship. So
and I'm sure they still love each other and would say they love each other deeply.
Probably. Exactly. So I think at this point, the opportunity to take a look at this relationship from a different perspective. All right, we can acknowledge, right, whether she meant to break a rule or not. You know what? Hey, sorry, it happened.
Yeah.
All right. Now, can we rewrite this story? Can we bring this story as it's been told to an end? Right? Now, this is where I often look at, especially whether it's infidelity or if it's something like this kind of rule breaking, to look at the fact that we don't have to end the story, but let's finish this chapter. Let's end this chapter and let's write a new one together from this point forward. And it's a chance now for them to be able to approach each other in a different way and say, how do we want the story of us to unfold from this point forward?
Right. But see, everybody knows, like, if there's a difficult phone call that you put off, the longer you put it off, the bigger and more scary it becomes.
Exactly.
And when couples have been in this situation that Mary's described, I think more often than not, a little help is in order to get
absolutely.
past
I'm
that
working with a professional.
of how do you start that next chapter.
Right.
Right? How do you ease back into what's become kind of... a lot of avoidance, a lot of the proverbial elephants in the room.
Sure, but we also have to remember, before we ever get to the point of sitting with or in front of a professional, we have to have that conversation amongst ourselves in the relationship. So, Mary, maybe that's something that you can try to bring up with your husband, but, acknowledging that no matter what happened, they are still together. So there still is a workable foundation here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that maybe talk to him about the possibility of now maybe seeing a professional to get that help to reconnect in that erotic realm.
Right.
Roommates are easy, and roommates are safe. And you know what? Intimacy and love are wonderful things. But intimacy, love, or I should say intimacy and commitment, to do that kind of Sternberg triangle model, the intimacy and the commitment are obviously there. But let's reconnect both the intimacy and the commitment to that sense of passion, to that eroticism.
Yeah.
Right? It's still there. And again, don't get a whole lot of information, but I think there's enough to say that there's a lot to work with.
Yeah. And not always to trust that there's going to be a momentum that'll just carry itself. This was the closest we've ever cut it. We had about 2 minutes to spare getting to the station on time tonight for the show because we just came from a brilliant presentation by my brilliant partner in Modern Sex Therapy Institutes, Dr. Rachel Needle, who said that the statistics show that most couples wait anywhere between 4 and 7 years.
Yeah.
Before they will find their way to our offices.
Yeah.
Wow, what a
Yeah.
shame that is, that
Yeah.
people suffer sometimes silently, sometimes angrily, for so long
Yeah.
before they make the decision. Now, of course, one of my many fantasies, the ones I'm willing to share in public, is that there would come a time where before you get married, before you can get a marriage license, you have to meet with a sex therapist. Right? The only people I know I've heard of that are required to have premarital counseling are Orthodox Jews and Catholics.
Yeah.
And with all due respect, I don't think rabbis and priests should be talking to engaged, about to be married couples about maintaining an erotic marriage and avoiding these natural entropies and writing the rules and clarifying the values. If there's sex negativity in the room.
Sure, especially, and again, that's often the problem with a religious basis or view of sex and sexuality, is that it does tend to be very negative. It does tend to be very anti-erotic. It does have a lot of prohibition, and there's just so much heavy dogma that comes along with it that it does make it a hard reference point.
Yeah. Well, here's a first. It's our first hour, and it's our first time taking a break for a little commercial message. So we're going to be back in about 2 minutes. Thanks. Please stay with us, and thanks for joining us on Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
Let's all welcome a new sponsor to the show. It's AMP2 TV, the first and only internet production company that's truly plugged in. When you're looking for a full-service internet TV radio production company, discover AMP2 TV, a full-service production company that can provide all streaming videos in studio or remotely. They offer web page development, and they use all the latest platforms to help make all your business selling points more powerful. They can do remotes or live radio streaming, as well as tape productions for social media platforms and television. AMP2 TV can handle all of your television needs, including closed caption for a perfect on-air telecast. Choose from a variety of creative TV and radio packages, or visit one of their many studios to get your creative juices flowing. Come and see why AMP2 TV works with many major companies, including Comcast, Bravo, and Fox 29, as well as individuals and businesses of all types and sizes. To see samples of their work or to find out more, visit their website at amp2.tv. That's A-M-E, the number 2.tv, or call them at 866-224-5422. Feel free to call for a quote or just a consult of how to put your business on a social media platform or radio platform, or just doing a show that is covered by all platforms. Call 866-224-5422 and make an appointment. That's 866-224-5422.
Does your business MobiPop? A new way to grow your business. Using a simple keyword, drive customers right to you with just a click. Customers will receive your personalized digital business card within seconds, with all your contact information in one place, including a gallery of photos, videos, and clear call to action that drives sales. Promote your products and services, or share a hot new listing with custom event pages and RSVP form, boosting qualified leads. Special offers and promotions are directly sent to your potential customers' phones with text campaigns, increasing foot traffic and creating a loyal following. Let MobiPop drive your marketing campaign. Focus on your business. Let MobiPop focus on growing it.
We are back. That snuck up. Thank you again for joining us on Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
Yes, and welcome back. And again, if you'd like to join the conversation, ask a question, just give some input, you can call us at 888-565-4960. 1470.
So we're talking about relationships and why the struggle and how even in long-term relationships, the sexy doesn't have to die.
Yeah, and it's almost become a cliche and kind of an expectation that as people are together for periods of time, that they're kind of supposed to not have desire anymore.
Right.
As we get older, we're supposed to not have desire anymore. Right? So again, you talk about sexy killers, it really does seem to all come down to this aspect of desire.
How many jokes were made in the lead up to marriage equality about, gay people want to get married now so they can stop having sex like everybody else?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Or what I thought part of the whole advantage of being gay was that you didn't have to get married.
Right, and you could have sex your whole
Right.
life.
Whenever you want.
Right.
Exactly. So this, I mean, it's really become so ingrained
Yeah.
in so many people's minds and so many aspects of our culture.
And, of course, everything with the technology and everything being on steroids now, what they called in the 40s and 50s the 7-year itch, nowadays seems more like a 7-month itch.
Yeah.
That people,
Yeah.
they find them, and dating people often complain, that they find themselves in a real relationship, like 7 months. What do you know in 7 months? And already there's like, I don't want to have sex with this person anymore. I need somebody else.
Right.
And I think a lot of the dating apps and a lot of this, kind of catalog, especially the outright hookup apps.
Well, sure.
I'm horny. I'm looking for someone to have sex. Who's within a half-a-mile radius of me? It's had to have some effect on bonding and attachment and relationships.
Sure. And, that's something that really is in evolution right now. Really, especially with millennials, and we're seeing it with, I guess, Gen Zers or Yers, whichever the follow-up
Why was before
relationship.
millennials?
Okay, so
After
then,
X, now it's Generation Z.
okay, so millennials and Zer, however, whatever letter somebody may have, there's very much this sort of pervasive belief that relationships really don't matter anymore. Or relationships are something that you save for later on in your life. Right now, I don't have to have sex with somebody. I don't have to have be hooking up to. I don't have to be in a relationship to do any of this.
We're just hooking up.
Right.
And
So-
I think maybe that's a 90s kind of thing? Hookup
probably
culture.
started, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which was insidious because even younger high school or college kids, there was this sort of aura that it was safer. I'm not just going out on a date with one person. We're in groups of friends.
Yeah.
But then what happens? Everybody's splitting up and pairing off.
Well, social groups became incestuous.
Yeah.
And it's the only way I can really
Yeah.
describe it.
Right.
So
we're not in a
became
relationship. It's just sex, sex with benefits.
right, exactly.
Right, which
and
is a
within social
scam.
groups, they would just sort of have different hookups at different weekends and all of that, but still
Yeah.
within the same social group.
Yeah, but
so-
I've always felt that sex with benefits was a ruse, was a way of people trying to just convince themselves that sex doesn't mean anything. There's no
So
emotional
you're friends with
attachment.
benefits.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
which is
Thank
also that. What was it? Was the term for that kind of sex without responsibility? You're going to have just a partner that there's nothing,
no strings
no
attached?
strings attached, right?
Yeah.
A no strings relationship, and that has also always been a delusion. There
Of
has never
course.
been any such thing as a no strings attached relationship. Every relationship has strings.
And a lot of it comes down to what are the expectations
Right.
that never get talked about that people have about sex. It sounds corny and cliche at this point, but it's valid. What are the symbolic meanings of everything
Right.
about a sexual encounter or an intimate relationship?
And that's an important point. And we've talked about it over the years, especially in relation to some of the sexual medicine. Right, when you have let's say an
Yeah,
older couple
exactly.
that comes in, the guy has not been getting erections in years. He then goes to his doctor. He gets some Viagra, and now he
thrilled.
comes back. Wow, hey honey, look what I got for you, and she ain't interested.
She's maybe even pissed.
Yes, exactly.
Like, ugh.
Exactly.
I used to chase me around the house. Now I'm like...
That's right.
what do
I
you-
used to do that for
Right.
you. I can't
Now
anymore.
you need
Keep your pills.
and pulleys and
Right.
cranks and...
Right? So
Forget it.
a very unrecognized aspect to all of this, even among sexual and sexual health professionals, is that idea that sex in a relationship has a symbolic meaning to it.
Right.
It's not just an act, and it's not just something that is shared. There is something that it represents for people.
Yes, but part of what compounds it and makes it problematic is that the script still says it's a goal-oriented process. And that's also where a lot of couples fail, because if sex is goal-oriented, then that brings with it more expectations, which usually translates to pressure and anxiety.
And
what
performance.
sex therapists love to call performance anxiety. So instead of enjoying, how many times have we said it's only sex work if you're getting paid for it?
Right.
And even sex workers are allowed to enjoy the sex they're having.
Sure,
It's
sure.
supposed to be sex play. It's supposed to be
Yes.
fun and enjoyable, and it's not like, oh my God, or guys, yelling at their penises, don't fail me now. And
Yeah.
they're in a panic.
Sure.
The opportunity to have sex with someone, they should be thrilled. Instead, it's like, oh my God, my entire manhood is on the line. What if I fail? What if I fail?
Yeah.
How many times have we said the surest way to lose an erection is to worry, about losing an erection?
Absolutely. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And, again, when we look at these dynamics and when we look at how people end up playing that stuff out, it goes back to, again, those unspoken rules. Because people have, Albert Ellis in Rational Motive Therapy would have a field day with
love
all this
him.
stuff because this is the height of irrationality. Talk
Indeed.
about irrational beliefs. What we should be doing, what we're supposed to be
His
having.
brilliant word, masturbation.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
we masturbate into a panic.
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that becomes another killer, right? Because the expectation that can rarely be met, right? And then end up settling for things, end up operating under other people's scripts. We've talked recently about that double standard in a relationship where, it's almost
Sexism is
a
alive and
given,
well.
right? It's a given. It has been accepted by men and women everywhere that women are generally going to have a lot of unpleasant sexual experiences.
Or-
They're not going to have orgasms every
Yeah,
time.
even if it's pleasant, they might not have an orgasm every
right.
time.
So that's a given that
Right.
the women's experiences are going to be like that, especially if we're talking in a heterosexual relationship.
Yeah, but for men,
For men, the expectation is a guy has to ejaculate every single time. A guy has to
It's-
get an erection whenever he wants one, and he must ejaculate and have an orgasm
and on time,
every time.
not too quick. Then better not take too long, right?
Right.
100% or catastrophe. Mm-hmm. That's a powerful example of these kinds of scripts or expectations
Yes.
that create these problems. Here's something that I've seen countless times in my practice working with couples. I don't want to single out anyone in particular, but I will have to say it's particularly
It's
common.
you, Joey.
It's particularly common among Catholics, right? Mm-hmm. That if a woman has an orgasm first, that's fine. In fact, that's preferred because then the guy is relieved. Now he can go ahead
Pressure's
and have
off.
his. Right. And he's succeeded. He's done his job. Can check off another success and feel good about himself. If he ejaculates first, if he has an orgasm 1st, then that's it. The brakes are slammed on. Sex is over. She's angry. She rolls over. She's disappointed. She's cursing him out. Now, where did that rule come from?
Wait, now which rule is that? That he
it's,
can't come first.
Yes. And if he does, that's it. It's over. If she does first, it's fine. It's great. Sex continues.
Right.
Now, if a guy ejaculates, there's 1,000 ways that he can continue to pleasure a woman, even if he doesn't have an erection anymore.
Right.
But no, the
Right.
rule says he's blown it. It's a failure.
So, and by the way, I what I said before was COME. Okay.
Nice try.
So I was spelling it a little differently. So when we look at those again, where that rule comes from, I think that rule sort of developed over the fact that historically men just don't. We're not taught. We don't often get it. And I think they're part of that expectation is that once a guy does ejaculate, once a guy And again, think of the language that we use. For another word to use for a guy ejaculating, finishing.
Finishing. Right.
The guy's finishing.
Right.
So that's that expectation that when a guy ejaculates, he's done.
There's
so no
nothing else
wonder his
he can
partner
do.
is going to be upset.
Right. His fingers don't work. His tongue doesn't work.
Absolutely.
His entire body just
Absolutely.
collapses into
Right.
a unconscious mess.
Right. So to guys, let me address this to you, that very often we got to understand, especially that first ejaculation, when you do ejaculate, you're not finished, you're just beginning. Right? That should not be the end, that should be the beginning.
Even the precedent to that, the erection. It's part of a guy's script that an erection is mandatory equipment that you better show up with.
That's right.
For sex to happen.
That's right.
Instead of realizing...
What do we need an erection for?
Well, instead of realizing that an erection is a result of arousal, of ideally being aroused together, or as we like to talk about, relaxing into arousal.
Sure. But do we need an erection to give and receive pleasure?
Well, that great Marty Klein quote, right? Intercourse is the only sexual act that requires an erection.
That's right.
And it's so brain cramping because we're so conditioned. That's another rule. Sex is intercourse.
Right.
And everything else is just fooling around. That's the rule that needs to be thrown out because it's all sex.
That's right.
People should never use the word foreplay.
Oh, I've always hated that word.
It's a horrible word because it's right in the word. It's the play before. Before what? Before the sex starts. No, you're having sex.
Exactly.
And it's also sexist because it implies that women need to be all revved up to get turned on.
Well, how many people, even sexual and sexual health professionals, have used that analogy? Well, women have to be warmed up like a crock pot or a slow cooker, and men are just like microwaves.
And what's a foreplay for a guy? Zip, ready.
Right. Well, foreplay for a guy?
Whenever you are.
Yes.
Okay. Right, ready when you are. That's so wrong. These rules have to be broken, and couples need to be encouraged to write their own rules.
Yes.
Even the most orthodox religious people of whatever stripe have to understand that there may be differences of opinion and culture with things like kink or same-sex relationships, but if a relationship, in however people define it, is sanctified, then there is no unnatural. There is no not allowed.
Right.
There is no... I mean, if you're using your hand and you're with your partner, you're not masturbating. You're having sex. Yeah. Right? Unless your partner is 1,500 miles away and you're on Skype or something. Right? Okay. That's mutual masturbation.
Absolutely.
Although it's not... Masturbation is a solo event.
Right.
And speaking of which, that's another giant source of pain and conflict and values clashing and problems in relationships that every sex therapist sees constantly.
Right.
Of course, the culture has just saturated us. Everybody's walking around thinking there's this epidemic. There are states lining up declaring porn a public health crisis. This is insane.
It really is.
And in a nutshell, I'd just say, and I'm sure people might be upset by this, but in a nutshell, I'd say it's never about the porn.
No, it really isn't.
No.
And first of all, it's never about the porn from the standpoint of people don't look at porn.
That's right.
That's that phrase that is so often used. They're looking at porn. No, they're not.
It's not too much goofier than sleeping together.
Yeah.
Right.
I used to tell people that all the time. If somebody asks you, have you slept together? Tell them, no, we didn't get any sleep. We were up all night having sex.
Looking at porn.
Right.
Looking is the only activity that's going on.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's masturbation.
And we're still too... I hate to say, embarrassed and uncomfortable and immature to talk about masturbation.
Sure, people don't want to touch
it. Touche. As a normal part of human sexual expression.
Right.
Again, more rules, more just where do they come from? I don't know, but I have to believe it. Masturbation is only for lonely people who can't find a partner.
Right.
Partnered people masturbate. There's a shocker.
In fact, there is a correlation that the more partnered sex somebody is having, generally speaking, the more masturbation they engage in.
Right.
It's not just you do because you've got nothing else.
Yeah.
Right. And can you explain this one to me? We've both heard this from guys before, and I've never understood that. Asking a guy, "Do you masturbate?" and the response is, "I'm not gay."
Right.
How homophobic does somebody have to be that the idea of touching even their own penis is threatening?
These are guys that urinate like this,
Yeah.
right? And their toilets are a mess.
Exactly.
Because they're so homophobic, they don't even want to touch their own penis.
Yeah.
Because that's gay.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
That's another crazy rule.
Right.
So even when the rules are crazy, there's still an imperative to follow them.
Yes, exactly. That's that fidelity to the rule, no matter how insane that might be.
Right.
All right. Again, we can look at even in partnered sex. How many guys are actually cutting off both pleasure that they can experience, pleasure their partner can experience with them, that can give them, that practice of pegging. How many times do we have to try to explain to guys that if you have a female partner who
That's
wants to
heterosexual.
stimulate you anally, that's not gay.
Right.
Right?
A wonderful Psychology Today blog by our friend and partner Joe Court called "Your Anus Does Not Have a Sexual Orientation." Right?
Yeah,
There's no such thing as a straight or gay anus.
Right. So, again,
It's an erogenous zone,
this stuck
like
in
all
these
of our
rules,
bodies.
Right? And what's the casualty of all of these ridiculous rules and holding tight to all of these ridiculous rules?
People are having sex that's not fun.
Yeah.
And
what happens when you start having sex that's not fun or satisfying? You stop wanting it.
Yeah.
Desire is dead.
That's also from Esther Perel, and it's one of those questions. I talk about it in supervision all the time. I hate it because it's so painfully true, but how could you desire what you already have? Mm-hmm. And that's a challenge for keeping a long-term relationship sexy.
Sure.
And that, like you said at the top, we need to find a way to keep tension and not fall into too comfortable, too soulmatey, too roommatey, like Mary said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that really is kind of the easy part of the relationship.
Yeah. Just a couple points about why it's never about the porn.
Yes.
Right? The
yes.
things that we hear in classrooms and therapy rooms. It's never a cause of ED. Right? We have this, if
No.
something has an acronym, it must be real, right? So people are talking about, PIED, porn-induced erectile dysfunction, is crap.
Yes.
Right? Again, it's not about the porn.
No.
There's this idea that it's competition, especially, for partners, again, more typically in heterosexual couples.
Let me stop. Let me say, if I can, let's take a step back. Let's flesh that out a little bit more. Right? That porn-induced ED.
Yeah.
Why is that a pile of crap?
Well, because we'll talk about guys, right? When guys are alone, and especially with the technology and the 24/7 on-demand, high-quality streaming, sexually explicit media, it's just all arousal and no pressure.
Right.
With a partner, they're all if they're fixated on their performance. Now, again, it's work, and so many guys are so fixated that they're not even noticing their partner's pleasure. I ask guys sometimes when they're dealing with these kinds of ED or other sexual dysfunctions, if you watch porn, what are you getting off on? The pleasure of the people you're watching. But when you're with your partner, you're so focusing on yourself, and in your head, you're not even noticing your partner's pleasure. That's work.
So
That's
it's
no
an
fun.
intimacy issue.
Absolutely.
It's the getting used to, and I've often talked about this sort of association, this conditioning effect of getting so used to having that ejaculation, having that that pleasure, having that sexual response in isolation, where when you're done, you click off, it's clean, it's neat, you don't have to deal with anything, there's no expectation, there's no pressure. Now, in the presence of a partner, it's, what if I don't?
Right.
So that's really that's why it's never about the porn. The two things that really drive what people call porn-induced ED is that kind of intimacy fear, that again, the performance anxiety that's a part of it, and the guilt that they have over masturbating.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Those are the drivers. It's not porn.
And I'd add one more, a little bit of laziness.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. That's
Because
part of that
it's,
no pressure.
It's like McDonald's versus cooking a real meal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
easy, it's fast, it's...
That's right. When I'm done, I'm done.
Yeah.
And no one's going to criticize me.
And unfortunately, another thing not too many people are talking about is how it's again, not the behavior, but very often that's the coping mechanism with the anxiety or the depression or 1,000 other things.
Right.
That if we work on those, especially when we get into these more compulsive kinds of behaviors, or what our friend and recent guest Doug Braun Harvey has termed out of control sexual behavior.
Right.
Always with the asterisk that
Yeah.
it's feeling out of control.
Yes.
Right? Because we've had
Yes.
guys who come to us in a panic that they call themselves addicts and they're masturbating once a month.
Yeah.
Imagine a heroin addict shooting up once a month. You can shoot up once a month and you will never become addicted. Right? It's
Right.
another crazy adaptation to call this an addiction
Well,
and
it
compare
really is.
it to
But what is the
chemical-
basis of all of that? The guilt.
Yeah.
The guilt and the
Yeah.
shame. That's
the
what's
last
driving
thing a sex therapist would ever want a patient to leave their office feeling is that their sexuality is broken or diseased or something to be afraid of or fear that they can lose control of. What if I don't know what I'm capable.
it. Well, yeah, we hear that a lot too.
it's
That there's that
terrible.
pleasure phobia, that
Yeah.
fear. I'm afraid I might like it. Well, why are you afraid you might like it? Well, because that automatically comes with a fear of losing control. If I like it, I'm afraid of losing control.
Like that classic old, for women, the fear of becoming addicted to a vibrator.
Right.
Come on.
Right. No.
You can't.
Use a vibrator, please. I think every woman would probably be better off if they did use a vibrator.
Another common one that therapists hear all the time is this, from the partners, and typically it falls along sexist lines, right? If a wife, especially in a long-term relationship, again, busts her husband looking at porn, the first thought is, oh, that's what he really wants, and I can't live up to that.
Right.
He's looking at two-dimensional imaginary fantasy, plasticized, fantasy objects.
Right.
And she thinks, I can't compete with that. And that if he's looking at that, that's what he really wants, so he doesn't want me. Again, it's never about the partner either.
No, it really.
It's
Well, I'm gonna a little sort of hesitance on
well,
that.
of course, what's happening in the relationship?
Yes,
If the partner is
exactly.
acting like an angry if the
Right.
partner
There's
is
a
saying,
contextual
right,
part to this.
if the partner saying, I will not have that disgusting porn in my house.
Right.
It's kind of hard to see her as a
Right,
lover.
exactly.
and-
Right. Now, but this is also, I think, a distinction between somebody who occasionally is using porn, or that's something. But if it's becoming a replacement for the partner, then we really have to look at what's happening in that relationship.
Right.
And I'm sorry, partners. It's easy to want to play that
We're
victim,
not
but we have
blaming
to
the partner.
not blaming the partner, but there is a
But there's-
responsibility.
There's a couple dynamic.
That's right.
What is going
Both
on in
partners
the couple?
have a responsibility.
Right.
It's not saying it's one person's fault. It's not blaming the partner, but there is a contribution that the partner is obviously making to the relationship dynamic
Right.
that is allowing that person to want to prefer looking at these images, getting off by themselves rather than connecting in the relationship.
Yeah. And if
And that's not about the porn.
All the usual suspects. Shame, criticism, judgment, right? The things that kill the sexy.
Yeah, that really is. And, but those two sides of that coin, the shame, the guilt, but there's also the comfort and the safety.
Right.
So it's this real sort of interesting
Finding a
dynamic to
balance.
maintain this flame of passion in an
Yes.
ongoing relationship. To be able to not confuse, to be able to surprise your partner. I remember just even with our own mom and dad, there were times where hearing our parents. Right? And for people, our mom passed right before our parents' 60th anniversary. So, people that have been together for this long, I really had almost this giddiness at times whenever I would hear one of our parents say to each other, after all being together for so long, I never knew that. Or really? I didn't. The fact that they were still able to surprise each other, I think that's a real big piece that people can learn from.
Yeah.
That if we can find ways to surprise, if we can find ways to not be so predictable, if I know that my partner is expecting this, maybe I'll do something a little bit different. It doesn't have to be this big ordeal. It doesn't have to be this set of rituals or anything. Yeah, it's not rocket science.
Yeah,
right?
really.
It's not rocket
There's
science.
no other body function that anybody gives half a mind to unless something's stuck somewhere and broken. We trust that our body knows what to do, except when it comes to sex.
Right.
Our brain gets in the way.
Right.
And,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
You know what the music means, my brother.
Yes, indeed. So
We are so grateful to all of you who've joined us this evening, and thanks, Freddie. It's really great. We're excited to be in a new time slot. So
yes, indeed.
join us again, not Mondays, but now Fridays at 7 for an hour of Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers.
Have a
Thanks,
great weekend and a good week.
Good night.
You've been listening to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us every Monday night at 9 p.m. on WNN, 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Or watch live streaming video at AMP2 TV Productions on Facebook, or look for the shows on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again next week.